Joined by visiting fellow at the US Studies Centre and Sky News contributor Bruce Wolpe. Bruce, good morning to you. Let's start with breaking news.
We have breaking news out of Washington a few minutes ago. The president has announced that there's an interim trade deal with China. It covers currency, it covers technology transfer, it covers agricultural products. So this is a very good sign as far as the US-China trade talks are concerned. A big boost for Trump. This is his most important foreign policy trade agenda. And we have an interim deal being announced right now in Washington.
What a major shift in just a matter of 2 weeks. We saw Scott Morrison, our Prime Minister, visit and had the whole ceremony with Donald Trump and the state dinner. But some of the rhetoric coming from the US President at the time in and around China, you wouldn't think 2 weeks later this would happen.
It's true. I do think that the Prime Minister privately urged Washington to make a deal with China, and all the allies were doing it. But what we have is a president under siege, and he needs to show progress on one of his signature issues. He's under siege for impeachment and political pressure, and he wanted very much to reach an agreement. You could tell from his body language over the past 24 hours, he wanted to reach a deal.
All right, we've got so much to cover, so we have to change the topics now. Let's start with President Erdogan, because he has just mentioned as well that he will not stop its operation against the Kurds. We're seeing over 100,000 Kurdish people already being deployed, and now what's the latest?
Well, as Amanda was saying, the president gave a green light to Erdogan to move into Syria. And Trump wants to end these endless wars in the Middle East, and so he wanted to withdraw U.S. troops from Syria. And these attacks on the Kurds are occurring. They're pretty savage. And now there's pushback. Did he go too far? What are the consequences? Does the U.S. have to impose sanctions on Turkey to limit the damage? At the same time, he's announced new troops to Saudi Arabia. So that's another military involvement in the Middle East. And that's because Iran poses a real threat to the region. It's a very unstable situation with the harsh U.S. sanctions, the collapse of the nuclear deal. Saudi Arabia oil fields were attacked. The Saudis want protection. So you still have a very complicated, very volatile situation. So the U.S. coming out of Syria, going into Saudi Arabia, trying to make some coherence out of a strategic mess.
With this impeachment inquiry obviously just bubbling away, his every move, his every comment, his every decision is being looked at through a microscope. Some of his critics are questioning the timing of what is happening in the Middle East.
Well, I don't think that's valid. I do think that he needed the China deal in order to quell some political opposition. But the impeachment inquiry is just running on its own momentum. If you recall, it was started because of the phone call that President Trump had with the president of Ukraine, and it seemed to indicate that Trump was asked for political favor from Ukraine to help him against Joe Biden and the presidential campaign in exchange for U.S. aid to Ukraine. This is what's being investigated. Every piece of new information that comes out on this issue seems to corroborate the political dynamite inside that affair. And so that is unfolding in the House. It has a lot of momentum. Everything the House is doing is trying to build the case, and they're just amassing evidence. The second phase of this is the White House has declared war on this inquiry. It's not going to provide witnesses or documents. And the House of Representatives is saying, we have a constitutional responsibility. We have the right to look at this. You don't cooperate. We think that's impeachable, too. So this is, the Democrats are on this road. Nothing is deterring them. And this is going to advance over the next few weeks. There was also a court decision in Washington just a few hours ago, which said that Congress has a right to information that the president has. The House Oversight Committee is seeking Trump's tax returns. An appeals court in Washington said you have a right to get those tax returns.
Yeah, just on the tax returns, yes. How do you see that whole thing playing out? Because it was an enormous story during the week about the magistrate in the East Coast.
That's true. And what the Oversight Committee is looking at, they want to look at Trump's financial records for laws broken over the past 8 years of his business activities. That's what they're looking at, and it comes from Michael Cohen's testimony before that committee in February, where Cohen indicated that there are several deals that he misstated his assets in order to get favorable tax rulings. So that's what they're looking at. They're going to get access to this information, and so that investigation will continue. I guess the question is, does that continue and they do impeachment at the same time? You know, it's still a little complicated, but it means you have a president under pressure who wants to deliver results on his policies, but he's facing a big wall of noise and action from Capitol Hill.
He certainly is. A person who came up quite a lot this week as well, who I'm interested to hear more about, Bruce, is Gordon Sondland, the US ambassador to the UN. He's got no diplomatic experience. He's donated $1 million to the Trump administration, a big supporter of Trump. What's happening there?
Well, he is going to testify before the House Committee on Ukraine, and he was a political... He can present the strongest case for Trump on the Ukraine affair because he believes that Trump did nothing wrong. So from the president's point of view, that's good news. But we also have Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney. And two of his associates were arrested at Dulles Airport 2 nights ago trying to leave the country. And they have been indicted for funneling $350,000 of Russian money into the Trump Political Action Committee. So the heat from all this keeps increasing. It's really something.
Oh, I can just see someone right now, a film writer or a series writer.
Oh, they're going to come out.
There's already about 5 series being written on this whole phase in American history. Let's get back to China, because you broke that news this morning, and look at the domestic impact. From an Australian perspective, this is good news.
This is very good news for Australia, for just cooling down economic tensions in the region. For American farmers, it's good news. It means that more agriculture sales. And the China-U.S. trade war has had the most depressing effect on the markets worldwide and economic vitality. So it's possible that this will represent a floor on economic weakening around the world, and maybe there will be more confidence. And so, yes, that's good news for Australia. It's good news for everybody if something meaningful can occur here.
It's nice to hear some good news.
It is nice to hear for good news. I don't want to be just the titer of bad news.
You bring it all to us, Bruce. And, well, the Democratic debate, the 4th one coming up on the 15th of October, this is a very interesting one as well, because you've got Bernie Sanders, who's just had the heart attack.
Yes.
Those health checks that they've all promised around February of 2020, will they bring them in earlier?
Well, I think everyone's going to be under pressure, including President Trump, to release their health records. A few things to watch in the debate. Does Bernie Sanders look healthy? Does Joe Biden look like a front runner? Is Elizabeth Warren, can she still consolidate her position as sort of the strong alternative candidate? And can anyone who's in the second tier, Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Cory Booker, can they emerge again and be competitive? So it's really going to be an interesting debate, but all eyes on Bernie. And how's his ticker doing?
There's no Barack Obama, is there? Barack Obama virtually and almost literally ran into office. We used to see the way he ran down the stairs, his rhetoric, his speeches were almost Martin Luther King-like. There is not that at the moment.
No. On the other hand, let's look at President Trump. He had a huge rally in Minnesota 24 hours ago. He thinks he can take that state. He only lost it by 45,000 votes. So that's another state in play, which would really be terrific for him if he could win. And so he had a rally in Minnesota, and his themes were strong economy, America first, strong military, trade policy, and then he attacked the Democrats. You're going to take away our guns. The Democrats want to nullify the 2016 election. He was on the attack, and he really felt he was in a strong position for what he wanted to do.
What about Andrew Yang? He's already been nominated for the 5th Democratic debate. He's pretty much possibly a long shot, but do you think his momentum
He's a very long shot, but he's found a constituency among techno nerds around the country, and he's been able to raise money, and he's visible. You know, he's at the bottom edge of the polls and visible. So yeah, he's in there for a while. As long as you have money, you can run, and he has money.
How much money have you got?
Nothing like that. Nowhere near. But let's get back. Look, we say that the China situation is good news. What's happening in Syria is really troubling. The Middle East obviously has been a hotbed for such a long time.
Well, the issue is whether these unresolved foreign policy tensions cause problems. So is there going to be more military action in the Persian Gulf? Is Syria going to become a more explosive situation? Is it going to be a humanitarian catastrophe of the Kurds? And what do you do about that? North Korea, that's unresolved. You've had 3 meetings of Trump and Kim, but the nuclear weapons program, their nuclear weapons program continues. Kim has said, we have until the end of the year to figure out a solution here, or else I'm going to go my road. Well, does that mean we're back to Rocket Man next year? So China is a ray of good news on the foreign policy front, but there are all these tensions around the world that are unresolved that could absolutely come back and haunt Trump and America in the year ahead.
Diplomacy aside, though, you know, the bottom line, what we're seeing in Syria, the Kurds, with, as I mentioned before, over 100,000 people being deployed. It's just...
It is, and a lot of people in Washington, Republicans as well as Democrats, feel the Kurds have been American allies for a long time. Is this a betrayal? And they're really upset about it. The Senate leader, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, the president's closest Republican friend in the Senate, believes this is a betrayal. And what's interesting so far is that sentiment has not merged with impeachment sentiment. In other words, senators and Republican senators are not saying, well, I'm going to punish you with impeachment because of Syria. That hasn't happened yet. That's good news in the short term, at least, for Trump. But these senators are not happy with this.
Yeah, we only have to go back to the 90s and saw what happened in Iraq, and that was basically the premise for a lot of the action with what Saddam Hussein was doing with the Kurds.
That's exactly right. And I think Trump does capture a lot of American sentiment that Iraq was a real mistake. And it shouldn't have happened, and it's unleashed these forces. That's why when he says, I'm bringing the troops home, that resonates in America. But that doesn't mean that the problems are solved.
No. Good to see you, Bruce. As we said, we could talk to midday.
We could?
We could indeed.
But at least we have a little good news.
Yeah, little ray of
Little
sunshine.
good news. Let's hope for more and more of that.
We hope for some more.
Thank you so much.